Modi's big announcement of a 20 lakh crore package to boost the economy reeling under 50 days of lockdown, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman laid out phase one of what that package entails. A 3 lakh crore bonanza for micro, small and medium enterprises, which will benefit 45 lakh MSME units. 20,000 crore has been earmarked for stressed MSMEs, while 10,000 crore corpus fund has been made for performing MSMEs, along with an equity infusion of 50,000 crores. The definition of MSMEs has changed. Now, manufacturing and service MSMEs will be defined as the same. Every business with a 1 crore investment and 5 crore turnover will be defined as an MSME. There will be no global tenders for contracts up to 200 crores. They will all go to Indian micro, small and medium enterprises. And all outstanding receivables will be cleared in 45 days. EPF contribution has been reduced from 12% to 10%. That is a liquidity relief of 2,500 crore for over 72 lakh employees. 90,000 crore will be disbursed to DISCOMs. 30,000 crore has been earmarked for non-banking finance companies to boost liquidity so that they can extend credit. Government projects and private real estate projects have been given a 6-month extension. On the taxation front, TDS rate has been cut by 25% and the due date for IT returns has been extended to November 30th. A slew of measures for the economy will more be highlighted in the coming days, is what the government says. To help us understand the finer points of these big numbers is our big news maker right now, NITI Aayog CEO Amitabh Kant. Mr. Kant, thank you so much for your time. The government has done away with the distinction between services and manufacturing to be eligible for MSME benefits. Does it imply that retailers, small shop owners, individual contractors will be eligible for MSME schemes? And what was the need for doing so?
I think critical, one of the big game-changing and radical things done in this particular announcement, it's a very comprehensive set of announcements, very, very detailed and path-breaking in many ways. But I think one of the big things, as you've said, is about changing the definition of the MSME sector. This has been the same since 2006, and it was ensuring that a micro remains small, a medium remains medium, and a large and a small will remain small. What this does is it really uses both the investment criteria as well as the turnover criteria. And the turnover criteria is also bringing it on par with global definitions of MSME sector. And this will really benefit a lot of MSME sectors. And in essence, what it will do is to enable micro to become smaller and smaller to become medium, and the medium companies to grow and evolve as they become bigger and bigger. I think this to my mind is a very, very major change. It's a structural change and a radical one at that, because it was pending for a very, very long time. The government has shown great courage and determination to bring in the concept of turnover in this definition.
What's the estimate, sir, according to you, how many such units will now be able to avail the special liquidity scheme announced today?
So there are two schemes which have been announced. The first one, I mean, there are several schemes which have been announced, but the two key ones I'm talking about is one is the 3 lakh crore collateral-free automatic loan for business, including MSMEs, and which has a 100% credit guarantee cover to banks and NBFCs on principal and on the interest. And this scheme can be availed till 31st October 2020. There is no guarantee fee, there's no fresh collateral, and this would benefit about, to my estimate, would benefit about 45 lakh units who can resume business activity and safeguard jobs. And this is a very, very big thing to my mind. because borrowers with up to 25 crore outstanding and rupees 100 crore turnover are eligible, and loans up to 4-year tenure with a moratorium of 1 year can be availed of. 45 lakh MSMEs will benefit. This is a big number in the Indian context, and this is really a job driver. This will create employments in a big way and get the MSMEs cracking immediately. The second big one is 20,000 crores subordinate debt for stressed MSMEs. And this is important because quite often MSMEs do not have adequate amount of equity. So it provides subordinate debt that is virtually like equity, and what it will do is government will provide a support of about 4,000, on which further subordinate debt will be raised and will be put in equity. And my estimate is that it will benefit about almost 2 lakh MSMEs are likely to benefit from
Mr. Kant, since we are talking about this redefinition, and this was also a long-standing demand, but is 100 crore too small? Would 250 crore be a better definition?
Well, I think this is a very good start. This is a it was very difficult to break this logjam for a long time, and I think this is a very good initiative. So what you are doing is you're really moving up. What are you doing? You're moving up from 20 crores to 100 crores. That is, you're moving, investment was about 5 crores earlier. Investment goes up for medium to about 20 crores, but the turnover is about 100 crores now. For small, it used to be 5 crores. For manufacturing units, it used to be 5 crores. It doubles to about 10 crores. For services, it was 2 crores. It goes up to 10 crores. And for micro, it was 25 lakhs, which now goes up to 1 crore, and the turnover is 5 crores. So it's a very big jump. It's really big ticket thinking, and I think this would really benefit the MSME sector in many ways.
How do you see the package being operational at the ground level? For example, incentives, credits for MSMEs, cottage industries will need a robust role of banks and financial institutions, particularly in Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities, and we know that banks here have had a very bad history.
Yeah. So, what this package does in many ways, 2 things it does. One is that actually a lot of lending in India's case used to take place because, banks were lending to NBFCs, mutual funds were lending to NBFCs, and NBFCs in turn were lending onwards to many of these MSMEs, particularly the micro and the small units. After the IL&FS crisis, banks had stopped lending to NBFCs, and therefore NBFCs had become resource starved. What this package does in many ways is to really get this NBFCs, HFCs, and mutual, HFCs and NBFCs cracking on ground, and the mutual fund industry cracking on ground. And it does by 2 ways. One is it provides a 30,000 crore special liquidity scheme. These are what the banks were doing because they were risk averse. And banks were only taking AAA rated bonds. They were not even picking up AA rated bonds and other papers. And what this government does is it's fully guaranteeing up to 30,000 crores debt papers of investment quality. And this is big to my mind. This is big thinking by the government, big thinking by Finance Minister. I want to compliment her greatly on this, because important thing in the Indian context is to get the NBFCs and HFCs going, the lending cycle going with them. And this and second thing, what has been done is to get this 45,000 crore NBFC partial credit guarantee scheme, which is where the government will cover the first 20% loss it'll include unrated papers as well. So this is again a path-breaking thing, and hopefully both these together will really get NBFCs, HFCs moving in a big way to start lending and getting their bond papers AA and all papers to be bought over by banks.
And everything, Mr. Kant, is linked to the issue of employment, and that's where I'm going to take the next question, sir. In an editorial, you have said that UP, Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat ushering in radical labor reforms was one of the boldest and bravest initiatives since the 1991 reforms. So are we to believe that it's only a matter of time that these will be taken up centrally? And if yes, when does the government intend to legislate it?
Good thing is that both central government and state governments are working together in partnership. You can't do many things in India without the states. Eventually, projects get translated on ground. And one of the things that is really, this whole issue of migrant labor is that we've created so much of informal jobs in India because of our very, very rigid labor laws. They have protected existing workers but not enabled new jobs to be created. And that's why I thought that what UP, Bihar and UP, Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat have done is very progressive. What they are trying to do is really to say that we've become labor exporting states. Our laborers are going to many other parts of India to seek for jobs, but we will provide them jobs here. We will get the first ticket investments within India and provide them the jobs. And that is the thinking, and therefore center and state are working together on many things. You will see a lot of, one of the good things that the Prime Minister really talked about yesterday was that he's talking about sustained growth over a long period of time. This is India's opportunity, as he says. And if India is to have sustained growth over a long period of time, he talked about reforms in labor, land, and liquidity. So he's pushing for that, one of which you saw in the definition of MSME, and I think we should have the patience to wait for many other reforms to be announced by the finance minister in the coming days. But this is really visionary thinking that along with the package, you bring in structural reforms which will enable India to grow on a sustained basis for a long period of time. I mean, this is a crisis which has to be used as an opportunity. Post-World War II, Japan did it, and much later South Korea did it, and therefore this is India's opportunity. We must seize this opportunity.
Mr. Kant, are you of the opinion that these three states have perhaps set the tone and other states will be following? Because as the Prime Minister said, that the time has come for self-reliance, that states will have to come up with their own model of self-sustaining the labor force so that the labor force that goes out of Bihar, UP or other states can find employment opportunities within the state.
Every single state should aim to be, in its own way, another Singapore or another South Korea. If Prime Minister's vision is to be a $5 trillion economy, that can't happen without states growing at rapid rates. And therefore, radical reforms have to be brought in by both the states and the center. And I'm really delighted that many states have pushed the limits, not merely on labor, but I think they've really pushed the limits on now some of the new reforms on agriculture side as well. And that, to my mind, is important because agriculture sector is the one which should really push for greater, has the potential to have much higher levels of growth in the days to come.
So, vocal for local may sound very good and motivating, but is India really prepared for that?
Yeah. So, what the Prime Minister said about was being self-reliant, and it's very, he gave this unique example of PPEs and masks. We were not manufacturers of them, but today we're making 2 lakh of them. Not merely PPE and masks, which you talked about, but ventilators, testing kits. All these Indian companies have done this. I mean, look at Arogya Setu. It was done within 15 days. Look at telemedicine guideline. Look at the Arogya Setu Mitra, which drives telemedicine. All done within a week's time. So what has crisis has enabled India to push for it, and there's no reason why every single item which we've been importing, and we've been highly import dependent from our neighboring countries, why we should not be actually manufacturing in India. That's what he's saying. We must build the supply chain in India. Once you've done it because of your local demand, you can use the domestic market as a springboard for export and penetrate global markets. I mean, that's what every country's done. You get the size and scale of India and then push for exports in a very big way. And this is easily doable in India.
Last few questions, sir. You know, the Prime Minister stressed on technology-driven system as a main pillar. But digital divide and asymmetry in India is huge. And that's a reality despite all emphasis on internet penetration, especially in rural part of India. What should be the roadmap both at federal and state level to ensure technology as enabler reaches the last person?
So my view is that, technology will have to be a very big driver of growth. We'll have to use technology to make a quantum jump in several areas. Quite often in India, we get into the sunset areas of industries. We need to get into the sunrise areas of industry like electric mobility, battery manufacturing, genomics. Many of these are new areas of growth. And actually, countries which really grow are ones which get into new areas of growth. And therefore, it's very difficult to get into sunset areas. And therefore, we must penetrate these areas in a much bigger way. And I think that's the aim. Use technology like we've done in, the JAM Trinity. We've been able to save so much of money and ensure that benefits flow to the right beneficiary, to the poor people at the grassroots level simply because of digital technology. We've been able to push our digital payments. We've been able to do a vast number of things, and therefore this is what needs to be done across health, across education, social sectors where technology must become a key driver of growth.
There isn't much for taxpayers, just a 3-month extension of the PF cut. Are you looking at a pickup in 3 months' time?
No, you have 25% further discount on your tax deduction at source, which is big. I mean, if you and I start getting 25% deduction, that's big. You'll be pretty rich. So it's a big one from Finance Minister. You should thank her for this.
Okay. Mr. Kant, Make in India hasn't seen much of growth in the last 6 years, despite it being such a big bang announcement. What is giving you confidence that in the times of pandemic, people will turn to India and India will become self-sustainable in the form of Make in India?
No, so Make in India, we've jumped up very substantially on the ease of doing business. And that was a very focused attempt. No country in the world has made such a big jump of about 75 odd positions, which India did. It was a huge, huge effort by everyone. We've opened up our foreign direct investment in a whole range of areas. We were amongst the largest recipients of foreign direct investment for 3 or 4 years, consecutively year after year. I think the government was very brave to open up in a huge range of areas. One of the challenges has been that we tend to subsidize on other areas where we charge extra on manufacturing for electricity, for water, for land and many other areas. We have to make states ensure that manufacturing must become highly competitive, and therefore plug and play will be the real key things, that electricity, water, all clearances are assured on ground in a very, very limited period. If that happens, then India will just rock on Make in India. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do it.
Last question to you, since this relates to the announcement today. Are you hoping that this relief given to the contractors and builders will lead to an increase in demand?
Well, it's a very good initiative. I think it's a very good move to give them extra 6 months post major and to give that benefit to contractors. And hopefully, because real estate again is a very major driver of jobs, it's one sector which we need to ensure that it bounces back. It's a sector which has huge dimensions in terms of job creation. And I think this will be a very big catalyst in driving that sector. But overall, I think if you look at the package in totality for today, it's a very, very comprehensive for the sectors, MSMEs and NBFCs, HFCs. It's a very, very comprehensive and a detailed package. And a lot of thinking seems to have gone into this. And I would really like to compliment the Finance Minister for having, it's a very bold and gutsy package.
All right, Amitabh Kant, CEO of NITI Aayog, thank you so much for your time here. And always a pleasure to speak to you, sir. We are slipping into a short break. This remains Art of Focus. Amitabh Kant, they're saying that these are bold structural changes that have been brought about. We'll try and decode it through experts on the other side. So stay with us.